Hey all, welcome. My name is Steve Scully, and I am going to give you an introduction to my book. It's called The Instruction Manual as It Is Written in the Cosmos. So, the premise of this book is that the instruction manual to life, in essence, to everything, is written in the cosmos, meaning that the more that we learn about the way that the universe functions, the more we can see an actual instruction manual on how to appropriately live our lives to essentially have our dreams come true. And so the principle is that. And so the cover here, just to go through it, it's this book is a philosophical book about physics, about consciousness, about religion, God, everything really. And it takes a step by step approach, starting with philosophy and physics, to arrive at the conclusion that all is one. And so, what this image here is a big part of the book is the concept that from one comes everything. And so the what everything means is that infinite. And so infinite spans infinitely larger and infinitely smaller. And so, in essence, what we're showing here is that the number zero, when two lights shine on it, produces an infinity symbol, not just by happenstance, but because everything is connected. And this will make more sense in terms of why this is the cover of the book as we go through the actual content. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do a chapter one. So we'll go ahead and go down. So this cover was made by German creative on Fiverr, so thanks to her. As you see, we have some scripture in here. There's all sorts of topics, but so we start the book with natural philosophy. So all here, the entire first chapter is really a philosophical analysis of how we do physics in essence. And then the second chapter here, we start to dive into different interpretations of observations that we have in physics based on a philosophical approach. And then chapter three is the structure of infinity. So we really elaborate on what exactly infinity entails in terms of what the structure of the universe is, how electric charges are caused, which is not just because they are charges, but because of the actual environment which they're in, which we'll see. And then just more about infinity. Mirrors of infinity is really where the cover comes into play most. The not so fundamental forces. So here we go into the fundamental forces, which are considered to be causeless, and then the rest of the chapter is just explaining how those so-called fundamental forces are caused by, in essence, the balance and opposition of zero and infinity, which is what Mirrors of Infinity really gets at. But that makes more sense in the context of the text itself. And then further analysis. So physics obviously is based off of many, many observations. And so this model, I just go into more detail. So the ether is currently considered to be disproven. So we go into what exactly is going on there. The double slit experiment, one of the cornerstones of quantum mechanics. Photoelectric effect, what's going on there. Cosmic microwave background, which is a Big Bang cornerstone. Dark energy, another Big Bang cornerstone. Plate tectonics, so that's also a theory. So this understanding of how the universe works from a physics standpoint allows us to actually peer into how the earth functions. And so we go into that and the concept of the expanding earth, which is what was the commonly accepted theory in geology prior to the arrival of plate tectonics. So the main issue with expanding Earth was the question of how, which led into plate tectonics. So we'll go into that. Applications in society. We go into how consciousness works from a physics standpoint by basically connecting back into all of what the previous chapters discuss in terms of the actual structure of the universe from a material world, physics of the material world standpoint, and then just showing how the same mechanisms, precisely same, exactly identically the same, describe how consciousness functions. And then the philosophy of chaos theory, so the concept that the present determines the future, but the approximate present does not determine the approximate future, which is actually very important in terms of how society functions and how we go about our lives on a daily basis, and as a group of people, say in a country type of level, or any level within the different ranges of groups, whether it be individual or small groups, large groups, the entire planet, and how it relates into chaos theory. The innovation paradigm shift, that Singularity. So in this section here, I discuss how there's an approaching paradigm shift Singularity. So with every new innovation, the amount of time before the next innovation needs to happen accelerates, so it shortens, and so over time that leads to the point where we need so many innovations within such a short amount of time that in essence they all need to happen at a given moment at the end of this singularity. And then beyond that time, the question is what happens next. So I go into that concept. Activation energy. So this is very related to the physics of consciousness in terms of applying the concept of activation energy, which is a chemistry concept, but it really applies to all of physics. The meaning of life. So once we go into all these topics, we can start to really draw on what this means about things. So the meaning of life. The all, so this is where God starts to come in, which is essentially saying all is one and one is all, and that is arrived at through the physics and not any other means. And from that awareness, we really start to dive into some pretty deep concepts in terms of their significance and importance within society. So the concept of a government that is God, and then we talk about voting, which is really the concept that we don't necessarily just vote, say in the voting booths. We vote every single moment, and even if it's a non-action, it's a vote in compliance with something else, allowing that something else to continue to be as it is. So in every moment we vote, and that's really an important concept that needs to be drawn upon. And then in this final portion here, the cosmic cell, which is actually an invention concept, basically built upon all of the physics, which in essence is a means for focusing cosmic energy using a lens specifically designed for it, based on actual awareness of how the universe functions, to arrive at basically a free energy device. But it's where the energy comes from the cosmos. So it's not free energy, it's fueled by the cosmos, and that's really just by using a lens with these concepts in mind that is fine-tuned for it. Just as we fine-tune lenses for visible light, we can fine-tune lenses for any wavelength of light. And in essence, if we design them for the specific intent of focusing cosmic energy, then we can do so, in essence, is what this the cosmic cell is about. And then the final chapter, the instruction manual. So this is what the book is titled about, and that's again the concept that the more we learn about the universe as a whole, not just individual parts, the more we see the big picture, and the more we can actually come to see the actual instruction manual. When we're born into life, there's not a book that comes with us that tells us this is how to live. The book, though, is the cosmos. And so, in a way, there is a book that comes with us that tells us exactly how to live. But we need to read it. That's the thing. We need to read the universe at large and actually study it and learn about all of its intricacies to really see how much instruction there actually is within all of the details. No individual detail is an accurate instruction, but as a whole, they lead us to do things that are in our best interest as individuals and as a society, and beyond a society, because it is for all, and that is what's best for self, for one. And that's really the key of expanding our awareness into as many possible realms of interpretation and observation. And so from that, the beginning section here is my story, where I just tell my story of how this all even came about, what I was doing in my life leading up to this, how it began, what I then did, and so that's my story in essence. And Judgment Day. So I looked into prophecies and I studied prophecies very, very closely, and that was largely inspired by Isaac Newton, who this work is based on, and who spent most of his life studying prophecies and alchemy and trying to understand reality, really. And so I looked into his work, and that led into basically what this chapter's about, this section here, Judgment Day and the planets. So there's a connection between Judgment Day and the planets, which, I mean, this is not just prophecy, this is also very detailed scientific analysis of observations that we have. So the observations match the interpretations in a way that is very interesting, to say the least. And then from the understanding of this section comes into Genesis chapter 1 and analysis of Genesis chapter 1 in light of what we discussed in the previous sections. And then finally the end of the book, and then my references and illustrations. And so there we are. So in my next video here, I'm gonna go ahead and start just reading through chapter 1. So thanks for stopping by.